in the last hour. Donald Trump has held his first news conference since last November's presidential election. It was dominated by a slanging match in which he accused intelligence agencies of releasing a dossier containing claims that Russia has material which could compromise the president-elect. Mr. Trump also insisted he had no Russian business ties and gave details of his plan to hand over full control of his business empire to his two sons while he's in the White House.
And what I'm going to be doing is my two sons, who are right here, Don and Eric, are going to be running the company. They are going to be running it in a very professional manner. They're not going to discuss it with me. Again, I don't have to do this. They're not going to discuss it with me. And with that, I'm going to bring up Sherry Dillon, and she's going to go, these papers are just some of the many documents that I've signed, turning over complete and total control to my sons.
Alexandra Frean is a business columnist at The Times and is recently returned from Washington, where she was the paper's US business editor. So, Alex, is it going to be easier said than done for Donald Trump to disentangle his business ties and avoid these conflicts of interest?
It's going to be very difficult. I mean, his two sons, Don and Eric, they're no dummies. They're smart businessmen. They will do their best. Trump is going to appoint an ethical advisor. But it's going to be very difficult to avoid the perception of a conflict of interest if, for example, he's president and has the Department of Justice has a conflict with a foreign bank such as Deutsche Bank. It's just resolved that. Donald Trump owes $300 million to Deutsche Bank. There's going to be a perception of a conflict of interest, even if he tries very hard to stand back.
And his businesses are still going to be making something like $100 million a year in profit as well.
Well, they are, but there's two things we need to remember here. One is that there's nothing in law that prevents the president from retaining his business interests. He's one of the few elected officials allowed to hold on to them. The other is that a lot of Americans aren't as bothered about this as we are, as the people on the left coast or the people in New York City who don't like Donald Trump are. They regard themselves, the ordinary people who voted for Donald Trump, they're pro-business. They regard themselves as, temporarily impoverished millionaires. They're just waiting for their chance. And so I think they like that he's a businessman.
So there could be a case for saying he should sell his assets, but really a lot of American voters will say, no, why should he?
I think a lot of American voters, applaud it, and they might actually see it as a good thing.
And I guess there are safeguards in the system anyway. I mean, people will be scrutinising his behaviour very closely to ensure that he behaves properly.
I mean, he doesn't have to divest himself under law, but he could be impeached if he, is found guilty of bribery or corruption. And every business deal that his sons do is going to be very heavily scrutinised. So they'll have to be really careful. The Democrats will be all over this.
And he actually said that he's been turning down business opportunities as well since he became president as well. I mean, does that play well?
I mean, it's hard to know what to believe when he says things like that. I wouldn't be surprised if foreign governments have been approaching him, but I'm not sure how much attention people are really paying to that.
Now, we heard separately today there were all these various allegations thrown at him that the Russians have somehow got a hold on him because they have compromising material. He's been accused of colluding with Russian intelligence during the election campaign. Is there actually much evidence of business ties between Trump and the Russians?
There's not very much direct evidence. Maybe he does have direct business evidence, but we haven't unearthed it. Time magazine, the Washington Post have looked very closely at this, and they have concluded that the problem, as far as they see it, is that a lot of his very senior and close advisors do have links with Russian financial institutions or friends of Russia, and that, they say, could pose a conflict of interest because these are the people that are whispering in Donald Trump's ear.